Okay, hi everybody. Hello, say hello to me. Hi! Thank y'all so much for joining us on a Wednesday night at the tail end of Dallas Arts Month. So I know that a lot of y'all must be very exhausted. So we're very grateful that you've joined us here today for our artist talk for To Be Altered, which was co-curated by myself and Joy Reyes, and features all five of us, including Leili Arai Tavallaei, Ari Brielle, Martha Elena, Joy Reyes, and of course me, Christina Hahn. Thank you all for joining us. So for today's artist talk, I am going to start by reading out all the accolades of the beautiful artists with me today. And then we'll be going into discussion questions. And then of course, at the end, it's open for the audience to participate and throw any questions our way. So without further ado, I'm going to start with Ari Brielle. Ari Brielle is a visual artist working across painting, video, and photography. Her work combines personal narrative with American history and contemporary culture in order to provide both a mirror and a space for reimagining. Brielle completed her BA in Interdisciplinary Art and Design at the University of North Texas in 2016, and in 2023, she received her MFA in Intermedia from the University of Texas at Arlington. Her work has been included in many solo and group exhibitions, including Is It Real?, Lagoon Studio, Dallas, Texas, Reclamation, Various Small Fires, also Dallas, Texas, 27 from Presa House Gallery in San Antonio, Texas, Rooted at the Dallas Museum of Art, and of course the Texas Biennial, A New Landscape, A Possible Horizon at the McNay Art Museum in San Antonio, Texas. And finally, A Safe Place, Oak Cliff Cultural Center, Dallas, Texas. Let's give Ari a big round of applause. Next up, we have Martha Elena. Martha Elena is a multidisciplinary artist from the Rio Grande Valley, near the Mexican border. She creates drawings and sculptures that explore the malleability and fallibility of language. She begins by converting phrases into the font Wingdings 3, which consists primarily of arrows. These reconfigured, reimagined phrases in turn inspire the composition, size, and color of her works, which range from large-scale fabric sculptures to handheld embroidery. Taken together, these arrow-based pieces approximate a universal method of communication divorced from any specific language. Martha Elena had a solo exhibition at Art Space 111, and is it Carillon or Korean? But Carillon.
Thanks, no, it's not. I butchered that. Sorry.
The Carillon Gallery in Fort Worth, Texas, and has shown in group exhibitions at Art Space 111, Clamplight in San Antonio, Troost Gardens in Kansas, and Tally Dunn Gallery in Dallas. Martha Elena received her BFA from the University of Texas at Rio Grande Valley and currently lives in Fort Worth, Texas. Martha Elena, everyone. Joy Reyes is a first-generation Mexican-American multidisciplinary artist and curator who lives and works in Dallas, Texas. Focusing on multiple mediums and themes, Reyes explores emotional and spiritual experiences of identity, familiar relations, religion, and sexuality, predominantly through the structure of memory. Reyes' focus on the preservation of memory and honoring her culture leaves room for the viewer to resonate on a personal level. With a similar approach to her personal artistic direction, Reyes' curatorial taste varies in approach with a similar focus on giving a platform and space for other marginalized groups to share their works and stories. Reyes is the curator and art coordinator of 3 galleries in downtown Fort Worth. Reyes is also the recipient of the 2024 Claire Hart de Gaulier Memorial Fund from the Dallas Museum of Art. Her work has been shown across the country and in the greater DFW. Joy Reyes, everyone. And Leili Arai Tavallaei is an interdisciplinary artist, independent curator, and cultural organizer based in Dallas, Texas. Incorporating heirlooms and adages from her multicultural heritage, her layered fine arts practice weaves personal ritual and preservationist inclination to confront fractured, often inaccurate memory. Blending printmaking, video art, and found object assemblage, her work reinterprets legacy through a multiracial, sentimental lens. Tavallaei earned her BFA in animation and printmaking at the Maryland Institute College of Art. Tavallaei has also been exhibited in galleries and film festivals across the United States. Her debut solo exhibition, Shoto Morgue, at Aaron Cluley Gallery, received statewide recognition in Glass Tire's Top 5 in May 2025. Her work has been exhibited at the War Memorial Building in DC, NASA Goddard, Downtown Independent Theater in LA, Lawndale Art Center, and more. She is a 2025 recipient of the Arch and Ann Giles Kimbrough Fund from the Dallas Museum of Art and is on the board of the Dallas Asian American Art Collective and is the curatorial co-chair for the Cedars Union. Leili, please. I'm not gonna read my bio because it's a little too fat and a little too wordy. So I'll keep it quick. Hi, I'm an artist, also a curator and the founder of the Dallas Asian American Art Collective. It is my pleasure and honor to be here at Hyphen. And even though we are not a conventional gallery, we have been featured by WFAA, Glass Tire, the Dallas Morning News, and KERA. And we're super grateful to have all of these journalists and people who are interested in the arts be interested in us with the rise of unconventional spaces for art and making art more accessible. And this folds into Alex and Vivian's larger vision of amplifying creatives of color in Dallas. And so one unique thing about us is that we really take pride in showing local and amplifying specifically artists of color. So with that being said, we're gonna go ahead and get into questions. So before we jump into the question about everyone's individual art practices, Joy, this question is for you. Tell us a little bit about the theme of the show and what kind of inspiration was happening for you as we began to build the show together.
Thank you, Christina. We had talked about doing a show together and curating something meaningful, but we hadn't really dived into what specifics it should have, right? And I remember lying on a couch somewhere and genuinely being very meaningful in my thoughts about how grateful I was for the platonic love in my life. I like, you know, when you're sitting down somewhere and you're very like, you want to feel sorry for yourself about what you don't have. But I remember just laying down and feeling so much gratitude about what I did have. And it was how all these different forms of friendship and family have completely changed my life. And while we were texting about the dates of the show, I just remember thinking, oh my goodness, this friendship is so nice. She's so put together. I'm so grateful for someone that is so inspiring. And then I started going on a spiral of just the ways different people in my life have quite literally altered me. And it has helped me improve in who I am. And it just kind of clicked about, wow, we should do a show about different people who have, whether it's like female friendships or their family, or how love has quite literally exalted us or altered us, and what that looks like from different perspectives. And so that was just something that we wanted to explore. And I just remember thinking, like, to be altered, your friendship to me has changed me. Why don't we just explore that? And that's where that came from.
Thank you. Yeah, so Joy and I met back in 2024. It is 2026 now. We had both received a grant from the DMA, and I did not know this person, but suddenly you were introducing yourself to me, you were gathering other artists, and I feel that that's such a big part of who you are, not only as an artist, but also as a natural curator of community. And so I'm so glad that we were finally able to do this. So I'm gonna have you also start us off with telling us about your art practice.
So my art practice has changed throughout the years, so have I. I used to weld and paint, and that was something that I was really interested in pursuing. And then over time, I felt the different experiences of my life were changing, and that was not something that I could stay focused on, was painting. So I started exploring different materials. So for the past couple of years, I've been searching on the ways to preserve memory, and that brought me to this rice paper material. And so a lot of my work and focus is now on mixed material and the rice paper, and still bringing in aspects of sculpture, but right now it is pursuing the preservation of memory on paper and telling stories in a way that it shows how fragile life is, and the way we perceive our memory is ever changing, and it will eventually fade, because our memory is notoriously terrible. It's not something that is actually accurate at all time. So when we have these photographs and that material thing to be able to look back at, it helps us preserve that and keep those memories alive. And that's just what my search has been about, is not actively grieving the past, but actually being present and remembering it, for not in a bad way, but in a, hey, I'm alive now and here, and I'm grateful for then, but I'm present now. So it's just been like a personal discussion between me about being present while preserving the past. Thank you for that question.
Martha, can you tell us a little bit about your art practice?
Hello. I get very nervous with artist talks. I don't really know what's going to come out of my mouth, so I'm so sorry. So I graduated 15, moved to Austin, had no idea what I was going to do, just wanted to be in the arts. So I was not doing anything productive, anything good. I was trying to do paintings and they were terrible, and moved to Fort Worth, and COVID eventually happened. And I was crawling out of my skin, and I decided to tear up some bed sheets and my pillows, and I made a soft sculpture out of that. And it was really cathartic and really awesome, because I kept tearing it apart, cutting it up, refluffing it, and I just kept doing that to it over and over until I found something that I can, it felt like a little person, almost like a little puppet. I was measuring my body, trying to figure out like what size to make it. I hadn't sewn before, so I did it all by hand, and so it was just like a lot of just like this very I wouldn't say like angry energy, but I was like really like in the middle of like a lot of tension. There was so much happening during COVID, the administration. I mean, everything was just, it was kind of chaotic. And so from embroidery, I kind of just started doing these large sculptures, and it's just always felt so right. In a way of like, I'm very comfortable with larger scale pieces, translating from English, Spanish, Spanglish, using pop culture references, movies, my mother's dreams. Sometimes she'll tell me a dream and I'll record it, or my dreams, little things that stick out that I can Frankenstein, very similar to the way I would do fabric. I do it kind of like with my life, and I'm just trying to find another little person. I don't know how to describe that.
A way to connect.
Yes, trying to a way to connect it. And so that the translation, sometimes it doesn't work well. Sometimes it starts off with intention and it becomes something else. And I think that is just, there's no rhyme or reason really at the end of the day. It just becomes what it will become, and I'm just like a vehicle for it. And I hear a lot of artists saying that the more I go out and do things. But it's a lot of just like more self-portraiture, conceptual work, that I'm just piecing it together and seeing if it works or it doesn't. So it's really fun. I go back and forth. I draw a lot. I embroider a lot, and the plush works are just what is louder. So when I want to be loud, that's what I'll make. When I want to be quieter, I'll draw. I'll embroider. And as long as it could sit on my lap and I could live there for a while, it's just like a very comforting process.
That's so interesting. So like comparing for Joy, where her art practice is an exploration of memory and wanting to preserve it, whereas yours is an expression of self, and it is self-portraiture. And before you had given us that background of how the art came to be, I didn't realize that it was bursting with so much fury, with so much anger, because what I see is serenity. What I see is a completed, at peace. Yeah. And so the fact that you're talking about these aspects of yourself that look clear, that you can see in clear shapes, but there's also parts that are knotted and that you can't really quite explain, I think really deepens the work. So this is you screaming.
Not necessarily.
No?
I wouldn't say
Okay.
anger either. I think there's a lot of tension. It's kind of like when you have like a knot in your throat, or you want to spill your guts kind of feeling, where it's just there's so much all at once and you don't know what to do with it. It's not necessarily anger, it's sometimes grieving. It's sometimes I think I'm gonna stop there because otherwise I'm gonna get a little emotional. I don't want to do that tonight. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, thank you for getting deep with us. Yeah.
It's very intimate, it's very personal, and I think we can all see that. It's almost like a chaotic unity. You know what I mean? There's a lot of different directions that it's going, but it flows together. And I think all of us personally have those different experiences.
And then another thing, I think, as we continue to go deeper into everyone's art practices, this will become more evident. But I think everyone here has kind of explored something different and new to their practice. So, because I'm very familiar with your work, Joy, where I first saw a lot of your paintings, acrylic and oil, and occasionally you would incorporate sculptural elements of like installation. And so the fact that you've moved into a flat but very deep medium, I thought was really interesting as well. If you could tell us a little bit more about the change in medium.
Like we were all kind of touching on earlier, I think as we continue to evolve, so does our work, especially as practicing artists. I'm a mother, and I think as I have grown up with my children, I'm realizing that I'm not just one singular version of myself, and I don't think I totally identify with who I used to be. So I think that's why it's really important to explore different mediums and to push yourself in things that you're not comfortable with, especially when you think that you're really good at one thing and maybe it's subjective and you're actually not that amazing at it. It's really good to continue to pursue something, and even if it's hard. So trying a new medium, even if it doesn't work, even if it's not everybody's favorite, if it resonates with you, I think that's what's super important as an artist, to continue to push yourself and see what matters to you, what you resonate with. And I think that this resonates with me, and I'm very satisfied with the direction that's going and the evolving version of myself now, present day. So I think it's really important to just like compare it, contrast it, but not sit in that. Like, just continue to pursue it. And I like the idea of trying something new.
So this kind of transitions us to Ari. So I had run into Ari because we were working together to do a hyphen pop-up at Tally Dunn, where we had first met. And I was telling her about being really stressed about my solo show because I was like using silk, a completely different material than what I was used to. And she was like, that's really interesting that we are all converging on a specific medium of silk, and that you had started to come back to something that you had explored in the past. So could you tell us a little bit more about your art practice and also specifically some of the pieces that we see here?
Yeah, right. I think like a lot of artists, my practice is about a lot of different things, and kind of the tension that Elena was referring to. I think it's a way to process and a way to talk and connect with people, because I can be very shy and I can be very to myself, especially when dealing with things. And so I make things because I feel like I kind of have to, and it is a good way to like get out that tension and get out the things that I'm thinking about and experiencing. So my work when I was younger was kind of looking outward, and I was I've always been interested in women specifically. Like as a little kid, I would always just like draw portraits of like either real girls or like made up people, or and I think that I have like a really strong like maternal complicated bond with my mom and just with the women that came before me. So a lot of my work is looking at that, but then also how like women are the vehicles and birthers of our histories, of so much creative and intellectual output. Like I'm really interested in specifically like Black women's contributions to the this culture, global culture, and how we've birthed so many movements and things like that. But a lot of my work was looking outward in the beginning, and then I started to deal with a chronic illness that kind of made me look inward, and so a lot of stuff now is like self-portraiture, even if it's images of like my family. So my foundation was in like drawing and painting sort of, and then like Joy, I like to move around in materials and kind of work intuitively with whatever makes sense for what I'm trying to do. For some reason, I like to do things that I've never done as well. Like for my thesis show, I was like, oh, I'm gonna make a 3-channel video. Hadn't really done that. I mean, sort of. At the DMA, there was a 2-channel video, but it was still just something that I was like having to like parse through. I'm learning that I really like the challenge of learning a new material and how I can make it do what I want to do. So yeah, but yeah, some of these works came out of the pandemic as well. They're all quite old, to be honest, and I have always worked with like photographic images for reference for paintings and drawings and stuff. And in grad school, at some point, I decided to use those as the image. And then at one point, I got COVID, like pre-vaccine, and I was very sick and couldn't go to school. So I don't know, like a lot of us too, I'm just like inundated with images and have like thousands of them on my phone and on my computer and on my Tumblr and like all of that. And I was just like looking through that stuff. And then I started to make like screenshots whenever there was something interesting happening on my desktop. So that's what that image is. Yeah, I like the idea of like all these different portals and yeah, it all kind of becomes self-portrait in a way too. And yeah, some of them, there's an image of my great-grandmother. So again, going back to that like maternal bond,
So for the audience, I'll describe the 2 pieces that are hanging in the hallway. Both of them are of Black women's hands. One of them is a pair of hands with beautiful jewelry. The other one is a single hand holding a tissue. And so it strikes a very interesting juxtaposition.
Yeah, those are, just 2 women. One that I know very well and is dear to me, and then the woman with the jewelry is Miss Joyce, who apparently came here today, which is so cool. I worked with her at the DMA, and she's a gallery attendant there, and she just always looked so fly and always had her nails done and like lots of jewelry, hair done all the time. And so I was just like, can I take a picture of your hands? But she really reminds me of like my grandma. So yeah, so there's always that like familial thing that I'm thinking about. And the material just came out of like not wanting to use paper and wanting to like, again, just play with something and I'm still trying to figure out silk and how I want to manipulate it, but, and it just felt like familiar to me, so yeah.
Yeah, as Joy and I were installing these pieces, we loved the movement that would happen. And especially with Miss Joyce's hands in the hallway, it was so gorgeous. And that's also the fun part about curating with Hyphen, is that the walls are uneven. So often I am not measuring, I am just one with the space as we're installing these things. But I think that it's a really interesting transition from looking at something that is silk, but it is supposed to show a screen, versus something that is animation and hand-drawn, and it is actually on a screen. So I'm gonna take us to Leili, if you wanna tell us a little bit more about your practice as a whole and specifically the work we're seeing here.
Yeah, so the bulk of my work, I would say I deal in ephemera and memory, and that is my medium. And how that is translated is through many different fine arts practices. I studied animation, and I realized very quickly that, animation is fun and all, but I really love the experimental stuff and getting my hands dirty, and so I dove into printmaking, and then it became my life, and I was obsessed with it for such a long time. And then my practice at that point really became my own at the intersection between printmaking and animation, which through translating ephemera and memory is dealing with that word translation a lot, is translating these physical material into something that I can save it forever, whether that was through paper, so making prints and kind of processing these images and items into a physical thing that I could then take and make multiples of, so thereby immortalizing this object in another form and through multiplicity. And then my animation practice really was based in saving and archiving these things in a digital space, thinking about the cloud, the phone, and like this new digital world that was starting to become so tangible in an intangible way. And since post-COVID, I think everyone has really felt the big shift and the difference between like the small internet versus this big internet that is like connected to everything and everyone. And even in the physical space, the screen has presence. And so that is like the beginning and the start of my art practice. And then as time has gone on, I am always finding myself drawn back to this idea of ephemera and object, and how do I piece these disparate pieces together, a lot of the times out of context. And a little bit of background about me, I'm a mixed kid, so I'm already dealing with a lot of pieces and fractures and have truths and have stories, and trying to piece them together to make something coherent, something that is understood and understandable by me, but also then by everyone else around me. And I think of my art practice as a conduit of, one, me figuring out myself, but also then documenting and immortalizing this process of like being mixed and culture mashing and building new culture, and then pushing that and putting that forward, because I, as a mixed kid, had a bajillion million questions, and I was like, I don't know why I'm drawn to these things, but I am. I don't know why I have this stuff in a drawer that is like, like I'm gonna do the same practice that my parents do of like keeping these specific things like receipts or like buttons or whatever you have in a drawer, because that's something I learned from my parents, because it will have something, it means something, there's sentimentality with it. And then bringing that into the forefront when I think about the future of like what I would love to have children, and so what am I passing on and choosing to pass on to the next generation or to my kids, because I, through better or worse, have been given an edited version or the quote-unquote best version that my parents or my grandparents wished to pass to me. And so now I am in the editing room. I'm choosing like what is the culture that I want my kids to value and to see and to be embedded and ingrained in their life. And so my art practice then is looking very closely at how am I taking these little bits and pieces together that separately, out of context, might have no meaning at all. It's just a random candy wrapper. It's just kind of a photo that's been in the back of a drawer that like every single one of my family at least has seen, and how do I take these things that are disparate and put them together to build a bigger and better picture, and the picture that I would like to address and put forward. So this piece right here on the wall is a video installation, kind of messing or playing around a little bit with translation. So a lot of these original images are photographs that are like not with me. So these are photographs that are in Iran, in Japan, in like my parents' home that I don't have access to. So it's a photo of a printed photo that I have then printed out and then tried to translate into printmaking, gone through a screen, gone back onto paper, and then rescanned and then made into a video. Many, many, many layers, many, many generations, many, many iterations and translations and mistranslations. And then at the end, this is what has been created from those things. So there's a lot of distortion, there's a lot of chosen like things that get passed on, but also things that remain remain or get altered not by choice, by just the medium, and that can be paralleled with time. And kind of going on what Joy was saying, memory is imperfect, and so I believe that my practice really captures this imperfection, but that moment in between when you can tell that something has shifted but you can't quite name it, that fuzzy, incoherent, but you feel deeply in your bones that like this is something that should be expressed and documented, that is where a lot of my work lands. So yeah. Thank you.